Hey everybody, welcome to the Dungeoncast. I'm Will.
I'm Brian.
This is the podcast where we talk about everything Dungeons and Dragons, from hungry half-orcs to humongous halflings. And today, we're guiding you through Xanathar's Guide. The Dungeoncast.
Okay, Will. Xanathar's Guide came out.
Yes, it did.
How's that treating you?
I'm loving it, personally.
I was very taken with the artwork.
Yeah.
I think the
artwork was very good.
Out of everything I was able to read, the artwork was my favorite part.
Okay. The artwork was very nice.
There was one thing I liked more than the artwork as
that?
far as content. And we'll get into it later.
Oh, okay.
But I'm sure it'll go with the flow of the episode. But for now, I'm really excited because this is one of the first episodes I have to take notes on as well and present my research.
Yeah.
It's very much
feel?
Will's job.
How's it feel?
It was taxing.
Yeah. It's more work than you think it would be.
I was like, fuck.
But let's pump the brakes for a second before we actually get into the nitty-gritty of what Xanathar's Guide has to offer. Let's announce our winners, because we ran a contest for this book.
Right. And it was going on for a long time. And so we want to say congratulations. We're just going to shout out your Twitter handle and thank you at Hambo2011. And thank you to the Spaces. That's Spaces with two S's at the end. You are the winners of Xanathar's Guide. Congratulations. Thank you for tweeting out links to the show, hashtagging it Dungeoncast. I think it was it Dungeoncast?
Yeah, it was Dungeoncast.
Yeah, you did it. I never have to do that.
Yeah, I run the Twitter, folks, if you didn't know. Thank you guys. Thank you to the winners and congratulations. And thank you to everyone else who entered. Sorry you didn't win. There was only 2 books to give away, but we really appreciate the 170 people that entered.
Yeah, guys, thank you very much.
Yeah.
It really helped us out a lot. We saw the growth of the show, and it's all from you guys telling people about our show.
Yeah. And there will be more contests in the future. So, you always have another chance to win something D&D related.
But here it is. We're going to guide you through this guide.
Yeah, we're going to do our best. We're going to do our best here. So how do you want to... let's start with a general overview of how you felt about the book. Do you want me to start? Or do you want
okay. You go ahead.
So Xanathar's Guide had a lot of stuff in it, and it's mostly really cool. There's a lot of character options in this book, mostly subclasses, which I love. Many are really cool. Some of them really stood out to me. A lot of them are very flavorful, which I'm always a big fan of.
I think the flavor was the biggest thing about them.
I think so, definitely, which is great. I felt like some were, I don't know if I want to say unnecessary, but I do feel like we're starting to get to the point where some subclasses are really stepping on the toes of other classes.
I came across the same thing. There was a lot of crossover.
Yeah, and some people probably don't see that as a bad thing. I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing, but I definitely don't think it's a good thing.
I think it's
inevitable, maybe.
It's hard because there are some people that don't, I struggle with how to phrase this because I don't want to put anybody down, but some people want to read the book and do what the instructions say.
True.
Whereas we've been doing fine without Xanathar's Guide. If we wanted something that happened to come out in Xanathar's Guide, we would just make it ourselves and try to balance it as best we could.
Yeah.
But I do trust the creators of the game, and I do like what I saw as far as there were some things that I thought were a little too powerful, but they makes it very enticing to want to play though.
Right. It's very true.
So wow, that's in this book. I'm definitely buying it. And I can see why they did that.
We are definitely seeing the beginnings of power creep. It's happening. There are some things in this book that are just blatantly more powerful than the things that came before it. Honestly, 5th edition's doing a great job of keeping power creep very, very slowed down, but it's an inevitable process of a meta developing in any game whatsoever, even a role-playing game.
It's that creep.
So here we are. Yeah.
It's hard. They're in card games like Magic the Gathering, there's format changes where they can these cards, you cannot use them anymore. Yeah. And it eliminates the power creep and sets it back down to 0. Yeah. And then, but inevitably near the end of they call them formats, the power creep is back. Yeah. And then they got to swipe it clean again.
Yeah. There are some rules, some variant optional rules that they actually put in this book to mitigate power creep. We'll talk about that. That's more towards the end. Speaking of which, this book is full of a bunch of variant rules and it's full of a bunch of rule explanations.
Yeah, some erratas and clarifications I really liked.
Which is really cool and useful. Some of the variant rules I would be more interested in than others. Most of the rules clarifications, I think they're good to be there. I'm sure there's plenty of people who use them. I probably won't use them just because I'm more fast and loose with my game running anyways.
Yeah.
And I just call it how I see it. The thing is, like, I'm sure there are people out there that need some of these more detailed, tedious, like, how is this explained in-game mechanics?
Right.
But for me, I just hand wave it, make this check, we're moving on.
Yeah,
but,
I liked some of the descriptions, but I feel how you feel about some of the other ones.
Right. So there's those. They introduced racial feats in this book, which are fucking cool. They're so cool.
I didn't get a chance to look into that, so hopefully you can explain some to me.
Okay, yeah, they're really nifty. They're very powerful. They're very potent. Okay. They're very power creepy, but I love them. I think as I don't know if I would call myself an old school D&D player because 3.5 and 4th edition aren't all that old, but it's very reminiscent of the previous editions, and yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
Cool.
This book is also full of a lot of random tables, most of which I will never use. Mm-hmm. I would even venture to say that there are so many tables that I almost felt like they were padding the book a bit.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, they were just like throwing ideas in there, and I kind of like I read that the "This Is Your Life" chapter, and I think that's
Is
where
that the backgrounds one.
Yeah, well, it starts out with like a lot of those tables, like of those ideas and stuff, and like it has the backgrounds in there and everything. And I was like, these are cool ideas, but it's stuff that I, as a player, like I had this concept as like this from a movie or something like that, you know, like, or a character I read in another book. I'm like, he's like this, but if you don't have the external to like pump
for
into
inspiration,
your character creation, there it is.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Those tables aren't for us, and that's okay. Like those tables are for someone else.
I do have an idea about what to do with the tables, though. That's if you're running out of things to do. I don't know if we want to get into it later near the end, or if you want me to tell you now.
Go ahead, just tell me now.
Just like I might have pitched this to you before, but it's just letting so there are games where you don't use the die as much. You don't use your D20 as much as maybe somebody else's game. But there's people's games where they use the D20 for everything. They're using numbers to decide lots and lots of things. Why not just roll that all the way back to the very beginning? I am rolling for a class. I'm rolling for a race. I'm rolling for a background, and I'm using these tables, and I'm rolling the dice to randomly generate everything about the campaign. Yeah,
if you want a truly randomized experience, those tables are a must.
Yes,
definitely.
I mean, like, what else even is there to do that with?
Yeah.
And it's all provided for you in Xanathar's Guide and the Player's Handbook. And maybe the DMG too. You probably don't need anything else if you're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the Player's Handbook also has many of these same tables for like your traits and your flaws and your bonds and all that stuff.
Right.
Which again is really, here's the thing. Okay. These tables are really cool, and I know that they're necessary. And the reason that I know they're super necessary for a lot of players is because of what happened with 4th edition. With 4th edition, the basic premise of that entire edition is that the only stuff they put in all the books had to do with mechanics. Most of the flavor, all of the role play rules, all of that stuff wasn't written because they figured, well, that's up to the players. Everyone role plays their own way. We don't want to tell people how to role play.
Yeah, it's such a creative process.
Yeah. And because of that, it backfired in a horrendous way. And everyone, for the longest time, likes to say that, well, with 4th edition, you can't role play as well, which is the biggest load of crap I've ever heard in my life. That is just completely, utterly wrong. Like there are no rules to the role play, so it's freeform. It's up to you. But I think a lot of people need that structure.
Yeah, I can see people needing like a jumping off point. Like they've come to a standstill and they need like the next thing to give them inspiration to flesh out this, to make like a more well-rounded character.
Right. And so 5th edition has taken a completely different approach, and they include a lot of lore and role play and all the things that they write. Which is fantastic, and I think it's overall better for that. But these tables, even though I will never use them, they are truly necessary. I do know that for a fact.
I agree. I think it's much better to have them rather than not have them.
Because I've seen what happens when you don't have this stuff, and it backfires.
Like people, I'm playing a game, I'm reading the material that's provided for the game. I want to play the game. Right. I don't want to just make shit up, and I can see why people have that approach.
Yeah. Okay. So that's my overview. Do you have anything you want to add to that? Your own take or overview on Xanathar's Guide, or do you want to start diving into specifics?
I mean, it's a really good, like, I kind of it was overbearing for me to try and get through the whole book because I literally was like, I'm gonna read this bad boy start to finish, cover to cover, and I didn't make it. And I was just like, oh man, we got to record this episode. I tried to skim through the rest, but it's a good read.
Yeah, it's a good book.
I thought it was the best read out of any D&D book I've tried to crack and do that with so far.
Interesting.
But it's almost like these books aren't really made to do that. It's almost made to like use the index and jump from the thing to thing of what you need.
If you get your hands on like one of the adventure modules, like Curse of Strahd, those are set up differently. As a DM, you're going to want to read it.
Yeah,
design it to be read.
I haven't done that yet in those books. I use the index and go to certain things, but I can see why you would want to read the whole thing through.
For sure. Okay, well let's get into specifics. Let's start with subclasses. Subclasses are the biggest thing. It's the biggest section of the book.
Right.
I think it's the thing that everyone's been looking forward to and talking about.
Oh yeah, because all the unearthed arcanas.
Yes, and that's where
a lot of them showed up.
A lot of them showed up. Oh yeah, that was another thing about this book that I wanted to mention, and I thought was an interesting choice, is although there is a lot in here from Unearthed Arcana, like we said, there was a lot in here directly from the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide.
Oh, cool.
Like, the stuff that's in here in Xanathar's Guide is in its same official form in Sword Coast Adventure Guide, which is a much older book at this point. And I thought that was interesting. At first, I was like, why would they do that? They're just double printing. Are they just trying to pad this book again? And it kind of dawned on me that no, what they're probably trying to do is trying to limit the amount of books a player needs.
Right. Because that's a module book, the Sword Coast Adventures Guide.
It's specifically a Forgotten Realms book.
Okay.
Because the Sword Coast is a big part of the Forgotten Realms world. But it's also a much smaller book with a lot less content in it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's probably the thinnest D&D book, right?
Oh yeah, probably. So they took a lot of the more essential stuff out of that and plopped it into this book because, again, like, they don't want you having to like search down all these books because, there's a rule later on, we'll talk about at the end of the episode, that plays into this concept of like having the least amount of books that you need.
And I'm sure part of it is like, let's pad the book a little bit.
I'm sure that is a little bit.
But consolidating, this is a good opportunity. If you're going to do it, this is the best opportunity you have, I feel like.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about subclasses. There was a lot of them. Most of them were very cool. There were so many that we obviously cannot talk about them all. I chose...
Yeah, they could carry their own episode. A lot of them.
Which, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Which, that's another thing we'll talk about at the end of this episode. I chose 3 specific subclasses that I particularly enjoyed.
And I
reading
picked,
about.
I snuck a peek at your notes, and I picked 2 more that weren't in your notes.
Okay,
that
cool.
Coincidentally, are actually my favorites.
Oh, okay.
So
awesome.
I was like, okay, cool. Will, I can see why Will likes this. I like this. Okay, so let's talk. And how about you do one, I do one, you do one, I do one, you do one?
Yeah, that works. That works. And I just want to say, like, these aren't the best, or like some of these are more flavorful, some of these are more mechanically cool. Like, I didn't pick these 3 because they're the best. I picked these 3 because they were the best to me, because they're the ones that I would like to roleplay.
Right. Okay.
So, one of the first ones that popped out to me was the Ancestral Guardian subclass for the Barbarian.
Okay.
Which is interesting because the Barbarian is probably one of my least favorite classes, which isn't to say I don't like the Barbarian. I love the Barbarian. It's a great class.
Just as far as like choosing one to be a player.
Yeah, like of all the classes, it's probably closest to the bottom. So I was really surprised when a subclass really spoke to me. Mm-hmm. And so this concept of the Ancestral Guardian is basically like you come from a tribe of people that really holds their ancestors in high esteem. For me, it had a real like Nordic kind of feel to it.
Okay.
Do you know what Einherjar is?
No.
It's an old Nordic word for like the ghosts of warriors past that like will come and fight when the horn is blown or something like that. It's some old Nordic tale that I'm sure I just butchered, so I'm sorry people who like the Einherjar, but they are a major influence on this subclass, because this subclass is about summoning your warrior ancestors to come and fight alongside you.
That's awesome.
Which is fucking cool.
That's like that reminds me kind of like Mulan, like Chinese culture, like how in depth they go with like honoring their ancestry, or like like Dia de los Muertos, so like Day of the Dead, kind of thing. Like, oh, we got to make sure we keep like our dead family happy.
Right, and I think
that
dead
family
plays
will reward
into
us
this.
and not hunt us.
It's in a very similar vein. It's the same as this, although you want them to hunt you in a good way.
Yeah, well, come hunt me in battle.
So the basic premise of this subclass is that you can summon ghost warriors that they appear. I don't think it's a choice either. I think when you rage, they appear.
Oh crap!
And Now
I'm scared of my own rage.
I know, right? Now, the way this played out wasn't how I thought it was going to, because I thought, okay, you're going to rage and these ghosts are going to show up and they're going to fuck some shit up with you. And they do in a way, but this acts as a very tanky class, and it's a very defendery class, like almost like old school 4th edition where you would mark your enemy and like and stuff like that. And what the ghosts do is they soft mark a target that you hit, and so if that target tries to hit someone else, they have disadvantage, and your allies resist the damage if they do hit.
Oh, cool.
So I call it a soft mark, but like that's pretty hardy. Like you're basically locking in that enemy to only attack you, because it would be stupid to attack anyone else.
Right.
This super reminds me of the 4th edition Sword Mage.
Oh, why does that sound like it's going to play well with something I have notes on?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what you have notes on.
Maybe we'll be able to touch on it.
Yeah, I just thought this was such a cool concept, because with the barbarian, you usually think a barbarian just rushes in and fucks shit up. But this barbarian rushes in and, much like a black hole, just kind of keeps things stuck on him.
Right.
And maybe isn't dealing as much damage as other barbarian subclasses, but is definitely mitigating much damage to his allies.
It's
which
like
is
a big
really cool
tanky defender class almost.
Yeah. And then later on, you can use a reaction to mitigate damage to allies for creatures that aren't even like with your soft mark that isn't a mark. You understand what I'm saying?
Kind of.
So like, okay, so the creature that you hit has that. It's not even a condition, but has that effect on them where they have disadvantage and your allies resist.
Right.
But later on, you can use a reaction for if your allies get hit by someone else, and your ghosts can intervene, and then you mitigate damage to your allies on other enemies too.
That sounds really fucking cool.
It's really cool. I love the flavor of this. And I think one of the main reasons that I really like this subclass was, for the longest time, I've been really playing around with the idea of homebrewing my own Sword Mage class, because I really like the 4th edition class of Sword Mage, and the current iterations of that in 5th edition really don't do it. Yeah, because they don't have the
there really isn't one.
Yeah, they don't have the Aegis ability where you basically shield your allies in this exact same way.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, this is good scaffolding for a homebrew that I've been thinking about making.
So more, just the fighter version of this.
Yeah, well, no, a Sword Mage would be its own class, but I would take these same features and reflavor them, because they work exactly how I imagine the Sword Mage's features would work, mechanically speaking.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's one of the reasons this one stuck out to me. Ancestral Guardian, it looks cool. I like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So should I go now?
Yeah.
What I really liked was I loved all of the bards except for one. I'll talk about the one I don't like first, which is what the Sword Bard.
Yeah.
The College of Swords, I think it was called.
Yeah.
God, I was
like that one?
I was so disappointed with it.
Okay.
It was like, why aren't you just a fighter?
Yeah.
But I love the flavor. Like, you're a bard and your magic comes from like sword magic, like performance magic.
Right.
And that's cool, but like when I was reading it, I was like, this is just fighter stuff.
I would say, and I didn't look very closely at this one. It's funny that that's your least favorite, because flavor-wise, it's my most favorite of the bard.
Well, I'm saying mechanically it's probably my least favorite.
I was thinking this, like, this might be, and I'd have to look closer at it, might be a good way for a fighter to multi-class into bard.
And I thought about that too. Yeah. That might be a cool thing to get extra stuff out of being a fighter. But I thought of it more of like, and I think all of the bards, well, one of the other bards is like this, but like just stacking it onto fighter is cool, or something else.
But a class should be able to stand on its own.
And I feel like this doesn't quite, like, why didn't you just be a fighter?
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. I feel like that with a lot of the subclasses in this book. It's like, I don't know. Like, okay, sorry to
no, go ahead.
The Arcane Archer, it's probably the most what's the word I'm looking for? People have been waiting for that class.
And it looks awesome.
And it's
I love the art for that.
It's a class with some history too, because everyone's always loved the Arcane Archer. I like the Arcane Archer. And I understand why they chose to make it a fighter subclass. I just wish they had made it a ranger subclass.
That would have been cool.
And the thing is, like,
rangers they've already got a little magic going on with them, like it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it already makes sense, and it specifically says in the subclass for the Arcane Archer that you can have a naturey spin on it or more of a elemental spin on it.
Yeah,
both fit, especially the nature one, to the ranger. And the ranger is a class that needs as much help as it can get, and like,
Yeah.
But that's just, you know what?
You know,
I understand why
I should have read
didn't.
more about the Xanathar's Guide Rangers to see if there was a buff to.
There are some cool subclasses, but honestly, the Arcane Archer should have been added to it. But anyways, back to your thing. You want to talk about the Bard? Let's talk about the Bard.
My favorite of the three was the Glamour Bard.
Okay,
it's got the
most popular one,
mechanically like ridiculous stuff.
Right.
What do I got on here? It's almost like you're like producing this thrall that's going out, and like you can select certain people to thrall when you're doing a performance, stuff like that. Or you can like what was it? You take the the extra defense. Let's see. I'm not good at notes, Will.
Yeah.
But I
think I remember glancing at it, and wasn't there stuff about like enticing an entire audience at once? And
yeah,
stuff like
and
that?
you can like select a certain number of them to be enticed. I think there's a certain limit on that. There's but what I really liked was casting command as a bonus action and not having to use a spell slot. I think you get that at 6th level.
Cool. Command's one of my favorite spells, so that's cool.
That's just like what the fuck? Free spell, it's a bonus action, so it's just like free stuff. You get just to do free stuff. But I really like the flavor of it more, where you're just like, you make yourself more beautiful, or like
very
whatever.
Very fey oriented.
Yes, and that's really cool. I can see like you being an elf and doing this sort of thing, or a half elf and wanting to do this sort of thing. Like, let me entrance you with my beautiful whimsical nature.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But the one I like the best, I think, is the Bard of Whispers. And I really like the lore that they added for that.
Okay.
It's almost like you're an assassin.
Okay, I think, I remember something like that, yeah.
And I thought that was so cool, and I want to try multi-classing it with an assassin rogue.
Right.
Like you're rogue, you're mostly rogue, but you go into Bard enough to get the College of Whispers, and the flavor for it is like you're this like other bards don't like you because you're like sullying their name, and you're dealing out like psychic damage and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's fucking awesome. You're like basically trying to manipulate others with your like psychic, like you're like you're sneaking through the shadows and stuff. It's like just a really cool addition to being like this sneaky stealthy killer, or like you're going in to get information from somebody. Like you're like the anti-bard. That's what I read it, and I was like, oh shit, you're like the nega bard.
Okay. The nega bard. That's pretty cool. I like that. Yeah, I remember I saw that. I didn't look too much into it. I think that was one of the subclasses I was like, are they stepping on the assassin's flavor a little bit?
That I thought they were.
But you thought it was a good thing.
But I thought it would be really cool to just like shove them together, almost like how it's like we were talking about the sword college kind of just being shoved together with the fighter.
Right.
I think it's much cooler in this aspect though.
Right. Okay, I understand what you're saying. Okay.
But that's my favorite. I really
so you like the College of Whispers was your big takeaway from the Bard.
Like I think if I were going to play a bard, I would play the Glamour Bard at this point.
Oh, okay.
And if I was going to play multi-class and pick one of the Bard classes to multi-class with, it would be Whispers. I really want to run an assassin with the College of Whispers Bard multi-class fitted in.
I like it. I think that'd be really cool. Yeah, that'd be super dope.
So what do you got?
So next I want to talk about my favorite takeaway. I don't even know if it's my favorite takeaway anymore. But I really like it. It's for the Ranger. I think on Twitter I probably tweeted a couple times about really looking forward to this subclass, but the Monster Slayer subclass for the Ranger.
Yeah,
I really liked it.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it really makes some of the multi-class ideas that I've had before a lot more flavorful and possible.
Okay.
And basically, the Monster Slayer, it's a more potent subclass, which of course is something that's needed for the Ranger, where you really specialize in killing. And the reason I like this is because it does this without stepping on the assassin's flavor at all.
Okay.
Because with the assassin, it's about assassinating. It's about sneaking in, killing people, doing stuff like that. With the Monster Slayer, you specialize at killing everything, but specifically monsters.
Right.
Which is, I don't know, that's really cool. You go out there and you slay giant beasts. That's fucking dope, right?
It kind of fits in because you have like a favorite enemy,
Yes. Now, one of the things that's disappointing for me when it comes to this subclass is there are no features that pull in that favorite enemy feature and do something with it.
Okay.
This is both a good and a bad thing. Like it's a bad thing because like I really wanted that and like I figured that that's flavorful and cool. But it's a good thing because when you do that, you become so specialized that you can become bad at killing things that aren't your favorite enemy. And I think they were trying to step away from that. I will say this though: you get the extra spells that you get for this subclass they really have a slaying of evil feel to them. So this plays into my like Van Helsing concept.
Oh yeah,
or like
okay.
a Buffy the Vampire Slayer concept of like killing the undead,
right?
Without being a cleric and being good at it, or being a demon slayer.
Yeah,
these spells really lean towards that flavor, and I like that.
I feel like the ranger is like the master tracker of all the classes.
Oh, definitely,
so
absolutely.
That's like a cool fit.
Yeah, it is. You get a really cool feature that like gives you access to metadata, like actual data out of the monster manual.
Oh, what? Yeah.
I'm trying to remember how it works, but basically like you can make a check or something like that, and if you succeed, you get like all the metadata. You get like the all the resistances, the behaviors.
You basically are reading the page out of the monster manual.
Read the page out of the monster manual, which I actually really like. I think
that'd be
it's
funny as a DM being like, "Here, you just read this out loud."
Yeah,
and literally hand it to him at the table.
I think a lot of dungeon masters don't like this idea, or may not like this idea, because it kind of feels like that's the one thing you don't do as a DM. You don't reveal what's behind the screen.
Right.
But what I like about this is it really makes the ranger feel the way the ranger should, where the ranger inexplicably has like this insight and knowledge into this monster and can bring this info to the table to help their party.
Yeah,
like,
to strategize and plan before a fight is really important. I feel like a lot of players in my experience don't really do that. They just like to jump into the fray and like, crap, that slashing damage didn't do shit.
Yeah.
Guess I'm not doing that anymore.
Right.
But knowing it beforehand, that really changes the landscape of the battle.
Also, I think it's a thing that like we hear about or see in movies and books. You know, that moment where like the master warrior and like maybe a couple newbies get into a fight with a monster, and it's like, don't look at it in the eye.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh shit, how does he know? He's got such experience. Like, he's so cool.
Right.
Like, it's that moment. And it's that moment built into your character mechanics. That's fucking cool.
I like, it kind of sounds a little bit like what you get at level 7 for a fighter. Where you like kind of get the skull level of the enemy. Yeah. But it's not as detailed. You kind of be like, I think you get it like its HP.
You get to measure up a creature and like its level and its CR rating. You get something like that.
Yes, and it's more like it's like sizing it up. Like, can we win? I think it'll be tough, but we can.
Right.
You know,
which I think is very fitting for a fighter, but for the ranger, I like this whole metadata kind of deal.
Like the specifics. It's really cool.
You essentially gain a feature in this subclass called Slayer's Prey, which is it's pretty much Hunter's Quarry from 4th edition.
Okay.
It's basically extra damage that you hone in, you pick a target, and now that target takes extra damage when you hit it.
Nice.
Which is awesome. And I forget how much damage. See, I think I wrote it down. Let me see. I didn't write it down, but you gain extra damage.
It's like calling your shot.
It's like calling your shot. It's honing in on your prey, and it stacks with your Hunter's Mark spell and all your other bullshit. So again, very potent, very damaging subclass, which again this class needed.
Have you played like arcade games where you know, like shooter arcade cabinets where they like focus in on the enemy's weak point and they want you to shoot it here and shoot it here. Yeah. That's what it sounds like. Like, hit it twice in the neck.
Yeah, and that's how I would picture it, definitely.
Cool.
Later on, like, you get other features that kind of boost this whole Slayer's Prey thing, where like you get boosted, like, I think saves against creatures that are your target.
Nice.
And you get you're able to counterattack them with a reaction if they had hit you.
That's cool.
So it's like opportunity attack just for fucking having the audacity to actually swipe at you.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
I love that with the ranger. You're like getting hit and you take out an arrow and you can't like shoot it, so you just stab that mug in the face or whatever.
So later on you get this it's called Magic User's Nemesis, where you can disrupt a spell, and I think the magic user basically has to make a save against your wisdom, and if they succeed, they pull off the spell. If they don't, it either messes up the spell or there's half damage. Something, you disrupt the spell. Now this is really cool and very flavorful, but I thought it was an interesting choice for a feature because it's very specific, and nothing else in this subclass is as specific as like you also fuck magic users up. It's not like, and you also fuck up large creatures, or you also fuck up undead. And like, just for some reason you have this specific magic user fuck up ability. So it's cool. It's just it's kind of like the odd duck, but it's a good ability. So
I always like little like groups of enemies that have like one spellcaster in it, and you're like, oh, that guy's gonna fucking murder us. Well, we have to get through all these little small fries in the front.
Yeah, and with this guy in your team or girl, like you got a little bit of ammo against them.
Yeah. Reading makes me tired. Will.
It makes me tired too, man.
Let's take a short rest.
Take a short rest.
everybody, welcome to the part of the episode where we're not talking about Xanathar's guide. We're talking about you and how much we love you. We love you. We have some announcements to make. I know we already talked about who won the Xanathar's guide contest.
We did.
Congratulations once again to you guys. But we want to talk about a couple of real special people to us. And that's Jesse Hamby. Man, thanks for upgrading your Patreon to a higher tier, one of the highest tiers.
Yeah, pretty much the highest tier.
We appreciate you very much. Your shirt's on the way, man.
Yeah, your shirt's on the way, and
or it's there, or is it on the way?
When this airs, it'll probably be there. I think.
Maybe. If it's not there, it's on the way.
Not. Maybe not. It's definitely on the way though.
It's definitely on the way. Thank you.
And
Edward Bowman. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
We really appreciate you as well. Thanks for jumping on the boat, the Patreon boat, Dungeoncast Patreon boat. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
But thanks to everybody who's been talking about the show. We know the contest is over, but if you want to help us out, go ahead and tweet out a link to the show. And Will and I appreciate it infinitely. We see the reviews, we see the comments, we see the likes and subscribes. Those subscribes, though.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
thank you guys.
What else do we got? We got anything else?
I mean, just where to find us. I think that's all that's left.
Well, if you want to find us,
I don't even know why I record short rest anymore. You just do it all. I just sit here and go, yeah, what he said. Yeah.
Well, you can find us on soundcloud.com/the Dungeoncast. You can email us at thedungeoncast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube. Just search the Dungeoncast. Thanks, Josh. And we're on iTunes or on Stitch or any podcast app, really. Yeah, that's it.
All right.
Let's go back to the show. Well, we're back.
We're back. And I think I closed out the last half of the episode with talking about the Monster Slayer. So why don't you tell me about a subclass that you liked?
Let's talk about the Cleric.
Okay. Let's do.
I've been playing a game in special guest Jake's game where we run amok in dinosaur land. I'm a dinosaur born. I have I'm a long neck. I'm like a brontosaur humanoid with
cool.
My neck is just longer. I have a tail. I have like a tail attack. It's like a homebrew, a reflavor of the Dragonborn kind of.
Right.
And that all being said, this isn't about that at all. We have a cleric. We have a cleric in our party, a dwarven cleric.
Okay.
That took the Forge domain from Unearth Arcana. And there's a bunch of cool fucking features that this guy has been using greedily on himself.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah.
One of them being making your weapons or making a weapon or a piece of armor magical with a +1 bonus to either the AC or the attack.
Yeah. Forge clerics are dope.
That is redonkulous.
Yeah, low levels, it's very powerful and it's very cool.
Yeah, what the hell? Like all of a sudden there's just somebody with a magical weapon in the party. And the monster manual set up to kind of mess up players at a certain level because they don't have magical weapons yet. And it's like, how are we going to kill this thing? We're not doing any damage. And this guy's just coming in like, yeah, I'm awake. Boop. Touch your stuff. Yeah, you like it when I touch your stuff, don't you? And he does, and but our cleric is just touching his own stuff and not telling us about it.
He's not being very supportive.
No.
Oh, he's not even telling you guys?
He's just telling Jake, like, low key, like, I touch my stuff.
Okay.
And I'm always just like into, I'm playing a wizard in that game, so my mind is all over the place. Like, what spell am I gonna cast next?
Right.
And I'm not paying attention to what he's doing, but I've noticed him like he's like, hey, I have this much gold. Can I turn my shield into like some bullshit? And the DM's just like, hell yeah, you can. That's what your shit says, right?
Okay. All right.
So like you can forge new weapons and armor and stuff like that, and for money and materials, I'm sure. But it's really cool that you're calling down like the power of your forge god or whatever to do this, like
to forge super
just
good
on the fly. Like I'm out and about and I'm like, using the power of God to forge my shit. At least I think that's how that works.
Right. I think so too. I didn't read too in depth on the Forge Cleric, but I do remember being interested in it. It looks like a very interesting take. And I remember it seeming very powerful and potent.
Yeah. Flavor wise, it's like really, it's not the most like intricate, like kind of flavor. It's like very straight and narrow flavor. Like you eventually get resistance to fire damage, which is cool because you're like always working at like with like fiery materials and stuff.
Definitely makes sense.
And then eventually at the high levels, you get like invulnerability to fire. Like you just you're not affected by fire.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And that was what stuck out to me the most, other than like making weapons magical with a +1. Just like as long it's funny what it said in there. It's like, once per long rest. Or until you die.
Oh, okay.
It literally says until you die.
Right.
I'm like, oh, fuck.
Interesting. Well, I think that's to differentiate between if you're knocked unconscious.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's cool because your physical like spirit is still there channeling the divine energy or whatever.
I guess so.
That's what I immediately thought of. So that's what I think. But yeah, you're like a like clerics are all about like kind of bolstering the party or like protecting in some form or fashion, like guidance or bless or like, but this particular cleric is more like I'm fortifying shit. Like I'm literally making armors and stuff, and I'm proficient with the heavy armor and all that, and I'm using it. I'm frontlining. It seems like this is a really good cleric to frontline with.
Yeah, I would say so, definitely. For me, it's a very dwarven feeling cleric.
Yeah,
so,
and I think that's why our player took that route. It was like heavily constituted and like bulky, you know?
Yeah, it's cool. It's a classic way to go with a D&D character, and it's really cool. I like it.
Yeah, and then the other one, the other subclass I really like was the Grave Domain. I think there was only 2 in there.
Yeah, those were the only 2. I didn't even look at the Grave Domain. It just didn't draw me to it.
Honestly, I like it. As far as like a character's class or whatever dealing with like the dead or the undead or anything like that, like how a necromancer would be.
Yeah.
This feels like a better take on... I don't want to say a better take because a necromancer seems like its own totally different thing.
Right, as it should.
But this is kind of like that, where you're dealing with like prolonging, like you're manipulating life forces, it seems like.
Right.
And you're prolonging people's lifespans. If they're close to death and if they've got something to accomplish, you can prolong their life and make it like call down from your god and be like, we need this fool, like, don't let him go yet. Let me use my power to save them. And you can prolong people's death, or you can like send people to death that are close. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. You can do lots of like, it just, for your, like, there's this ability at level 8, potent spellcasting. You add your wisdom mod to, cleric cantrips, which I think is cool. Like it's a cool little buff on stuff. Like, I don't know. It's like for clerics, it feels so different than all the other clerics. And it kind of stuck out to me in that way. It's like dark and brooding, like all the art for it was like, like candles and scrolls and like kind of like this dark purple kind of nasty, icky feel.
Okay. Would you say it had an evil feel to it or like a more neutral kind of?
I feel like it's kind of how people depict the Raven Queen kind of being.
So very neutral.
It's just like the laws of life and death are under my control right now.
Right.
To some degree.
Yeah, I get it. And it does feel like a very Raven Queeny thing. Yeah,
it just like has this it feels like you're inside of a mosque like when you're playing this character almost.
That's interesting.
I like that one. I'm noticing in my notes that I didn't get a lot of the specifics, like as far as like this gets a plus to this or whatever.
Right.
And I did write down that's like potent spell casting. I thought, oh shit, that's cool. Like I got to write that down. But I feel like maybe we'll get into more of this in later episodes.
We will.
As far as like getting specific.
There's so much content in this when it comes to the subclasses that I want to basically do a retake on classes where we'll do the fighter, and what we'll cover in the fighter class breakdown part 2 is we'll take the fighter subclasses from Swordcoat's Adventurer's Guide and from this book, Xanathar's Guide, and we'll just kind of go through them, discuss the flavor and the mechanics and stuff like that.
The fighter again.
Yeah, the fighter again.
Part 2.
I think I was playing around with the idea of calling it classes revisited, but we'll decide that.
Yeah, we'll get that. We'll get there later.
So I got one more subclass to talk about before we kind of wrap it up and talk about the other stuff in this book. This is probably the one I'm most excited to actually try out, the Warlock subclass, the Hexblade.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
I know we've been talking about this for a while.
It's super flavorful. It's also very mechanically sound and potent. It's also very front-loaded, so multi-classing is going to get exploited with this thing like a motherfucker.
And as far as like the art I saw, I think this had one of the coolest pieces of art in the book.
I don't even remember.
It was like that tiefling with that big-ass sword.
I don't remember.
It's really cool looking.
For sure. One of the things I don't like about what was written for the Hexblade is for some reason they felt the need to tie this thing down to the Shadowfell only.
Yeah,
and
I saw that.
I immediately disregard that. I'm like, you don't get to tell me like where I make my pact. Like maybe an Archfey wants to give out a Hexblade version of the Fey pact. Like,
sure.
You don't tell me how to run my game D&D book. But anyways, so it's a very front loaded class. You get 2 level 1 features. One's called Hexblade's Curse. The other's called Hexblade Warrior. And to sum it up, basically, you get the ability to curse enemies, and those enemies get bonus damage on them. This is a blatant 4th edition feature called the Warlock Curse in 4th edition. Enemies that I believe are cursed, you get an expanded crit range on them. 19 or 20 is now a crit.
Right on.
You get temporary HP on cursed targets when you kill them. I think it's equal to your charisma mod.
Oh, let's go off subject a little bit because I saw the errata on temporary HP. Like if you're granted temporary HP and then you're granted temporary HP again, you have to choose one. You don't get to stack them. It's like
you never got to stack them.
See, I didn't know that. That was a cool like. I didn't know that. I just thought like, oh, you get this temporary HP and this.
Yeah,
it's like this little like literally like if your HP is like this block, you have this block here, and you can only put 1 temporary HP block on top of your HP block. You get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And if you want to use, you get another one, you have to pick which block you're putting on top.
Yeah. It's always worked like that.
That's cool.
Ever since 4th edition. Yeah.
Well, they felt the need to write it down.
I think it's a common question because I think if you're new to the game, you're like, oh, cool, even more. You just keep stacking it, and like, no, you can't. You can't stack.
And a lot of the erratas were like, don't stack your stuff because it makes everything way too broken.
Nothing stacks unless it says it stacks for the most part, or unless like the 2 mechanic, like for instance, we talked about this in the multi-classing episode where Relentless, what was it? Reckless Attack? Or no, the raging resistance that you get,
and like the monk
and
one?
the rogue uncanny dodge do stack.
Oh, that's right.
The reason they stack is because one is resistance, the other is just a halving of damage.
And at this time, we've recorded the multi-classing episode, but haven't dropped it.
Yeah, we haven't dropped it yet.
More to come on multi-classing.
Yeah. So, but that's why they stack, because they're not actually stacking. They're 2 mechanics working in tandem.
Right.
But nothing stacks unless it says it stacks.
Yeah, there was one with like the monks. What the resistances for the barbarian and stuff? Was that it?
The sun's killing me. I'm just checking my battery because I think it's dying. But
okay.
Sorry. Go ahead. I'm listening.
I thought it was something about the barbarian's resistance to slashing damage and stuff doesn't stack with like if you multi-class with the monk. There's something that
no. What we're talking there is there's unarmored defense.
There it is.
You can't have both of those running simultaneously.
That's what it was.
They're the same feature. You have to choose one.
Right.
Okay. But
let's get back to the
Hexblade. You also get a use of better armor and weapons. You get upgraded to medium armor, and you get upgraded to I think it's all military weapons, or maybe you just get to choose one. I actually don't remember. I'm gonna plug this in.
Do it. Don't let it die.
And so either way, you get an upgrade to your weapons and your armor as a Hexblade, and on top, this is the final thing, and you get all of this at level 1. You can swap the use of charisma for strength when it comes to your weapon attacks.
Super cool.
So you just get all of this bullshit all at level 1, and it's all awesome, and it all makes this whole hexblading really fucking cool. I also thought that multi-classing this with Paladin and just fuck strength, you just go all charisma.
Nice.
So that you don't have to, because you get a swap charisma in place of strength. So now you get to really focus and boost your spellcasting ability mod, and it's simultaneously boosting your attack mod.
The power of my shit-eating grin has now stabbed you.
There it is. Later on, you get to summon a specter from those you kill.
Hell yeah.
And that specter gets to fight for you. And I think it has like half your HPs, it's full HP. Yeah, no, it's fucking cool. Later on, you get like bonus defenses to your cursed enemy. It's all about your cursed enemy and just fucking that dude's life up.
In his afterlife a little bit.
Also, this isn't tied to the subclass of the Hexblade, because that's basically it. I've given you the overview of the Hexblade, but the Warlock gets a whole bunch of new invocations.
Okay, sweet.
Some of which are tied to the new subclasses, some of which aren't, all of which are really fucking cool. I don't really want to get into it, but there's a whole host of new invocations in here. So this was a very good book for Warlocks, I will say that.
Cool.
So yeah, those are the 3 I chose. I chose Ancestral Guardian, Monster Slayer, and Hexblade. I just thought they were all really cool.
Yeah, Bard is definitely my favorite out of all the stuff, but I really like the Cleric as well.
Yeah.
I didn't have too much of an opportunity to get into
Anything
the
else?
back end of the book, really. So
okay,
do you have anything on that?
There was a section on backgrounds, which I didn't care for because I wanted more backgrounds. They don't give you more backgrounds. They just give you more of this role play flavor stuff that you can look at for the current backgrounds that exist. I'm sure that's useful for some people. I'll never use it, but it's there.
Yeah.
They included racial feats. I think there was like maybe 10 or 11 feats specifically tied to races from the player's handbook, and it was like 1 or 2 feats per race.
So they're adding to the existing pool of feats, but you get to take them if you're a specific race?
Yes, that's exactly how that works. Okay. So like the ones that really spoke to me were, there was a tiefling one called Infernal Constitution, which I've actually taken on my current tiefling character.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Which it gives you a +1 to your con, and you resist cold and poison damage now, and you resist all poison saves against the poison condition.
Okay, cool.
So I chose it because it just makes my already tanky character more tanky. And I just think it's really flavorful and cool. So not only do you resist fire because you're a tiefling, you now resist cold and poison.
Nice.
And you have advantage on poison saves. I just think it's
okay.
cool.
I was going to ask you if that's what you meant by, I think you said you have extra resistance on your save, but you said that.
That's basically what I'm saying. Another one that spoke to me, and I'm trying to remember the details. It's Fey Teleportation, where if you're a high elf, you can take a feat, and now you get Misty Step once per short rest, and it's not tied to your spells, which is nice.
It's just a lot of Fey stuff that teleports like 40 feet or whatever.
Fey is all about teleportation.
They're all about teleportation.
It's all about blinking to different areas.
Beam me the fuck up, Fey Scottie.
Yeah, so there it is. Again, there's a lot of optional rules, a lot of rules clarifications. I don't really want to get into the nitty gritty of it. They spent a whole section of the book trying to make tool proficiencies better.
Yeah, we were talking about that before the show a little bit.
I'm sure this is, again, useful for someone. Not useful for me. I understand the heart of what they're trying to do, though, because I guess basically what they're finding is that people aren't using their toolkits.
Right.
They're
just it kind of gets put to the wayside. Like, you have these tools, crack that lock.
Yeah. So
and not really getting into like how they work or
what they've done is, if you have a proficiency in a tool and you are making a skill check that could be utilizing your proficiency in this tool, you get like advantages or certain bonuses and whatnot. Again, it's cool, but what I find is like when we start getting into like these sub rules on top of other rules, these things get forgotten. At least in my games. So they end up not getting used. But I'm sure there's a whole group of people out there that love this, and I'm sure they're going to use it. I'm sure it's really cool. There was some rule clarification on identifying spell targets and like spell zones and whatnot. Which, again, I'm sure is used for someone. I'll never use it. There was something that was useful was there's a new table to help you calculate encounters for multiple monsters. Because I think the one in the Dungeon Master's Guide is a little bit flawed.
And I talking to new DMs, that's like one of the biggest questions I get from newer DMs is like, how do I build this encounter? Because I don't want to kill my players in this encounter. I want to challenge them. But
and it's a difficult thing to do. So this chart's supposed to help.
Okay.
So,
I got to take a look at that. I struggle with that a little bit too.
Yeah. For me, I eyeball it. I just eyeball it.
Yeah. That's the best way. And I kind of want to avoid doing that as much as I have been because I'm really guilty of it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's worth looking into for me.
Yeah. There are an obscene amount of random encounter tables based off like terrain and environment and stuff. I really don't think this many tables was necessary. Like, I think a few would be nice, but there's just pages and pages of this stuff in this book, and I feel like they are blatantly padding this book.
It sounds like a lot of work, but once again, I really want to do the random generation,
and that's everything. Cool, yeah. But the thing is, like, it was just so much. I was just like, this, Jesus. They did include traps and more rules on building traps, which I think is very useful, and they provided like levels for traps and all kinds of new examples of traps, because in the Dungeon Master's Guide there's only like 6 examples, so this added more examples and gave you better ways of approaching complex versus simple traps and stuff like that. Very cool. This I will use without a doubt.
Cool.
They implemented I talked about this in the downtime and crafting episode.
Yeah.
Those unearthed arcana rules that I talked about.
Right.
Totally implemented them in this book. They're now in official form. They're identical. They're really cool. I highly recommend you look at them if you're a dungeon master because they're super cool. I will probably be using these.
I think I mentioned that I just look at like history for traps. Like if you want to look at the tombs of Egypt, like that's pretty good. There's some sick traps.
Yeah. There you go. But for downtime and crafting, I definitely recommend checking out this section.
Yeah, this one's cool.
They have a section of magic items, which are common magic items, which I think has been severely lacking in the game up to this point. And it's really like innate stuff like, or or inane stuff that like a helm that makes your eyes glow red. Like it doesn't do anything, but it's flavorful and cool. It's just a whole list of magic items that just do cool, flavorful stuff without being overpowered, which again, this game has needed.
Right. Okay.
That's, again, the book ends with a smattering of variant rules. The one of which that I kind of want to talk about was the one rule that they recommend that you use to mitigate this power creep. And it's called, I actually forget what it was called. But basically the premise of it is you, when making a character, are allowed to use the core books and one of these additional books. So like the player's handbook, plus Xanathar's guide, and you can't touch anything else in any other book when making your character.
What else would you touch?
Well, what do you mean?
Like what other supplement would you use?
Sword Coast Adventures guide. Any of the module books that have extra stuff. Any of the Unearthed Arcana stuff.
So the rule is just you can only use 2 books at a time.
Player's handbook plus 1.
Okay, gotcha.
That's the rule. So, for example, you can make a half orc hexblade, but you couldn't make an Asimar hexblade because Asimar is in Volo's guide and hexblades is Xanathar's guide, and so there it is.
So you can't use Volo's guide and Xanathar's guide. You have to use Player's Handbook as the base.
Exactly,
and then you
plus
stack whatever.
Book.
Okay.
Now this is probably very effective at doing exactly what they want, which is to mitigate power creep. I will never use this rule, because this severely cuts into character creation and getting creative with it. Like, will I have to deal with power gamers? Absolutely. But I have ways of dealing with power gamers, my friend. I think that this is a useful rule for, again, some people. I will never use it, but I do appreciate that they are making the effort to mitigate power gaming. I think it's important that they do that, and I think this is a very effective way to do that.
Yeah, things can get out of control quickly.
Yeah, and with that, I think to wrap it up, this book has a lot in it, and some of which I find more useful than others, all of which I think are useful overall, and I highly recommend this book to anybody out there who's looking to get into the game of D&D.
I had two more pieces of art I wanted to talk about in the book.
Okay, all right.
The first one is the Paladin Tiefling that they have in the Paladin section. It's got like this mace that's a face, like a dead person. It looks like a dead person's face. It's got these weird crazy curved spikes coming out of it, and I just never seen or imagined a tiefling looking like this, and all this really cool silver chrome armor, and a bunch of daggers in the belt and stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's so cool.
That is cool.
And then right after that, there's this dragonborn with kind of this brown clay kind of colored skin. It's wearing these really light textured blue robes and a little staff, and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Oh, was it for a wizard? It was a paladin. Right? It was a paladin?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I remember the one you were talking about, because it was supposed to be an example of the paladin of devotion. I don't remember. And it's supposed to be a pacifist paladin.
I was just like, what is this art? It just looks offensive to me. But it might be just because it was because I saw that tiefling, I was like, wow, that's a cool, I never thought of a tiefling looking like this. And then I saw the dragonborn, I was like, wow, I never thought of a dragonborn looking like this. This is disgusting.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with a dragonborn just being in robes like a caster.
But it just looked bad. It was they were because dragonborns are kind of meaty and buff.
They can be lanky and not buff at all. Yeah.
Well, I always see them and picture them as this. Yeah. Maybe it's because of one of the other characters we've rolled with being so tanky.
Oh, yeah.
But I just saw this art and I was like, wow, that it broke the mold, and I didn't like it.
It's interesting because that's the thing. Most casters don't have any strength or constitution, thus they're lanky and weak.
Okay.
And not all dragonborn are buff. It's very true.
Okay.
Some are lanky and weak.
And I also I wanted to touch on the beginning of the very first pages of the book with Xanathar being a beholder that trying.
Oh yeah, that is a thing that we didn't really even talk about.
It was cool. We
talked about in the beholder.
They're trying
episode.
to make a premise for making the book, because it's called Xanathar's Guide to Everything.
It's funny. You think it's cool. I think it's atrocious.
Oh, really? It's because just this weird, kind of funny little story. Because it's this beholder that's got it's unshaven, it's been spending all its time reading or something.
I like the lore behind Xanathar. I like Xanathar and his Thieves Guild that he runs, and the whole mental kind of thing he's got going on, and he's kind of an outlier when it comes to the way beholders run. I like Xanathar. I like Forgotten Realms well enough, and I like him. I do not like the fact that we keep tying into core D&D books all this Forgotten Realms lore. Forgotten Realms is a campaign setting.
Okay.
And like the fact that we're so married to Forgotten Realms as like the new vanilla D&D blatantly offends me.
Oh, really?
And I hate it because like the Forgotten Realms isn't vanilla D&D.
Okay.
And it never will be in my mind and heart. Like vanilla D&D is its own thing, and I hate the fact that Forgotten Realms is the new vanilla because it never was before, and it just shouldn't be.
Like they're just trying to ride the Forgotten Realms.
It's exactly
theme.
what they're trying to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because like they're using it, they're like tying the book into like, this is why this book exists. And like, it's like Volo's guide, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah. And Volo's guide does the same thing. And I just don't like it.
Okay.
Like, because like,
see, I don't know about that. The Forgotten Realms stuff. I didn't even realize Xanathar was a Forgotten Realms thing. I was just like, oh, this is cool Beholder, where they're trying to like explain why they're writing this book canonically in their little like D&D canon.
And thus the reason why I hate it, because now it's making Forgotten Realms synonymous with D&D in the hearts and minds of all the new people. And it's just like, no.
Well, see, I didn't even tie. I wouldn't have never realized that is a Forgotten Realms thing without you telling me right now.
Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I do know that it offends me, but it just does.
It's so secular to me. Like, okay, this character Xanathar now exists in my mind, and it's a beholder, and it just like is so different from all the other beholders I've ever seen.
And I think someone who's a big Forgotten Realms fan might not like that part too, because now you're diluting the established campaign setting, and now people don't even realize that it's campaign setting.
Oh, how interesting. Okay.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't know if that's true. Maybe Forgotten Realms diehards out there can tell me if that's how they feel. But I think that's how I would feel if like suddenly Dragonlance became the default D&D setting, or I don't know, like Dark Sun. Here's the thing, like the reason they chose Forgotten Realms isn't just because it's the biggest, most popular of the campaign settings, but it really is the closest to vanilla.
Okay.
It's close enough where like you could get away with it, but for me it's like it's not close enough. Like, I don't like the Forgotten Realms Pantheon. And I think that's one of the most things that I hate the most about Forgotten Realms is their Pantheon fucking sucks. And in my opinion, obviously there's going to be people that disagree. And like, I don't like the idea that the vanilla D&D Pantheon is Forgotten Realms Pantheon. That fucking blows to me. So anyways, I don't want to, we're now diverging off of Xanathar's guide.
Is vanilla like the original like first edition? Is that what what is vanilla D&D?
Vanilla is this abstract thing. It changes from edition to edition.
Okay.
In 4th edition, they actually started to come out with like more concrete. It was called the Nintir Vale or the Dawn War Pantheon.
Okay.
That's where the Raven Queen comes from, and it's where a lot of stuff that carried over that we don't talk about anymore because they don't talk about 4th edition anymore.
Right.
Comes from. It was always this obscure. It simultaneously does and doesn't exist. And that's the way I think it should be, because like it should exist in the imagination of the players and the dungeon master.
Okay.
Like it should be up for interpretation. And when you tie it into a campaign setting that is not up for interpretation, that damages the brand to me.
Okay,
it's just the way I feel about it.
So here's just all this stuff. Do with it what you will.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the vanilla D&D.
Gotcha.
Like,
okay. Like, hey, you want orcs? Here's some.
Right.
Or you want elves? Sure. There are elves.
Exactly. All right. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah. Let's call it a game.
All right. Let's call
it
a game.
Bye, guys.
All right. We'll talk to you guys later. The Dungeoncast.